Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Now, one issue has been coming up with my clients, and I wanted to do an episode on it because I think that it's something that so many people really struggle with. If you are thinking about changing your eating habits, a lot of people will start that work. In fact, a lot of people that I work with will begin that work and they will get stuck in one place. And the place where they'll get stuck is feeling that they are unable to forgive themselves for all the weight they've gained. So you might be able to relate to this. And this issue is really close to my heart because I will tell you that this was a monumental struggle for me. It really was. Overeating let me escape, right? It let me be a little numb. It gave me respite from my perfect to do perfect, mentality that I had in my day-to-day life. But sometimes I took things too far, right? Sometimes I wanted to binge on mass quantities of food. And I would wake up the next day and I wasn't just dealing with the swelling and the bloat and the inflammation, which was bad enough, but I was dealing with the embarrassment and shame of what I ate. And when I first started doing this work myself, I started paying attention to my thoughts, right? And my feelings and my urges. And I felt so much more in control, right? I felt so much more in control around food, but I also just started to feel better. I was feeling happier. I was feeling more at ease. But there was one thing that I couldn't shake. I couldn't shake that little nagging in the back of my mind about some of the things that I had done that I thought I just couldn't forgive myself for. So, the question I have for you is, can you relate to this? Is there something in your past, something that you did when you were overeating and binging, that you also feel like you cannot shake the embarrassment or you just don't believe it's possible to forgive yourself for what you did? Maybe you even feel like you are in a different place right now, right? You are not that same person, but you can't get rid of the ghosts of your past. Sorry. And it may be something that you ate, right? For me, it's like retrieving food from the trash. I did that. Or picking fights you just so you could justify overeating, right? Or hiding food from your family, right? Whatever it is. I know that for people, myself included, who wanted to change how they ate and change this habit, this can be such a sticking point. So that's what today's episode is all about. And it's how to change your past. And I know that this is something that you think is impossible, but I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay. So here's what most people say when they're confronted with the idea that they can change how they think about their past or think differently about something that they believe causes them a lot of shame or embarrassment or regret, right? The first thing that you might say to yourself is, well, what I did was inexcusable, or I hurt myself and people around me. So, and I can't take that back. So the only way to feel better is to go back in time and undo what I did. And that's not possible. So here I am. I am just stuck. I am stuck because my actions were inexcusable. People might also say, and you might think this, well, if I try to change how I think about what I did, I will be letting myself off the hook. Have you ever felt like that? I know I have. So if I try to change how I think or my perception about what I did, then I will somehow be cutting myself some slack that I don't deserve. And it is sort of like we tell ourselves that we have to pay penance for our actions and that the shame and the guilt that we feel is payback for what we did. Or that if we just feel bad enough, if we feel enough shame and enough guilt and enough regret, then we won't repeat our mistakes. But I want to pose this to you. Has that worked? Has feeling shame and guilt and regret and embarrassment kept you in line? I really believed for a very long time that those should be things that would keep me in line. And then I didn't understand when I would repeat the same mistake, or I would wake up the next day once again, having done something that I regretted. And I just thought, well, I'm not learning my lesson appropriately. I just don't have enough shame or enough guilt or enough embarrassment to really feel bad about what I'm doing. Now, here's the problem with these two responses. One is that you cannot go back and undo what you did. So we can't build a time machine. We cannot step back in time and or hit rewind and undo the past. So getting caught in that framework of if only I could take it back, it's not going to do you much good. You are not going to be able to change whatever happened in the past. And what you will end up doing is just spin, and you will spin around in this idea of if only I could, if only that hadn't happened, if only if it was if only if it was possible to. But it's not. So that's the first problem. The second is when you feel a lot of negative emotions, it affects how you act. So our actions are always generated by how we feel, right? By our emotions. And shame does not generate positive actions. And this is a problem because if you want to change your overeating, if you want to start doing something differently or unwinding a habit that you have that you feel like it's no longer serving you, that is not going to be generated. Those actions are not going to come from a place of shame. I want you to think about this. When you feel the emotion of shame in your body, and it is an intense emotion, right? When you feel that way, how do you act? I want you to really think about this and answer this for yourself. When you feel shame, when shame is coursing through your body, what do you do? And I will tell you that for me, the answer was I hid, or I tried to cover up how I felt. And I bet a lot of you can relate. Shame keeps us in the dark, right? It keeps us from getting support or love. It keeps us from changing. And now here's the thing. If you are already in a place where you use food and drink to change how you feel, and let's admit it, so many of us do that because food and alcohol are such a quick and easy way to change how you feel. Guess what? If you don't like the way you're feeling because you feel a lot of shame, you are probably going to end up eating and drinking more, right? And this is why this is such a negative cycle. It's such a negative cycle because we really want to change. We really want to do things differently. We really want to act differently. We really want to feel like this habit is something that we have under control. And then we think about some of the things that happened when we were binging or drinking, and we beat ourselves up. We create all the shame. And when we create all the shame, we end up hiding. We end up not reaching out, not asking for help or support or looking for answers. Or we tell ourselves, I just can't take this feeling. This feels terrible. I need to do something to feel differently. And for most people, that means looking for something in their external environment to feel differently. And for a lot of you listening, that means overeating and or pouring a glass to drink. But you cannot stop your desire to overeat and overdrink. You cannot change this habit. You cannot do this from a place of shame. It will not be a position that lasts. It will not be a place that gives you long-lasting results. It might get you started. It might get you, starting a diet or taking a week off from sugar and flour or a month off, right? I'm not saying that it isn't possible to act differently, but it's not going to be motivating in the long run because shame does not fuel change. Because negative emotions do not fuel positive actions. Shame keeps you stuck. So here's what I would do when I would feel shame. first, as I mentioned, I would hide. I would want to pull the covers over my head and pretend whatever happened didn't happen. So I would go into denial, or I would make excuses, or I would tell myself, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. Anything that I could kind of hide from what happened. I would also often tell myself that something was wrong with me. And you can imagine how that felt if you've ever done the same thing, right? If you've done something and then told yourself that the reason you did it was because something was wrong with you, a good person wouldn't have done what you did. You can imagine how that perpetuates shame. And also, I had another strategy, which some of you might be familiar with. I would try to make up for whatever I did by running around being perfect, right? So inside, I would think, yeah, okay, I'm a screw up. I really messed up. There's something wrong with me. But look at all this other stuff that I'm great at. Okay, look at these things that I've achieved. Look at how I do all these other things perfectly. I thought that I could perfect my way out of it or achieve my way out of it. If I just collected enough gold stars, if I just did enough things right, maybe this would tip the scale a little bit. And you can imagine how exhausting that tactic is. And I'm sure that many of you listening use that too. And then, as we talked about, I would distract myself with something else. And often that distraction would be ending my workday and driving through 2 or 3 places, right? Loading up on food, right? Anything that would help me forget about how I was feeling. Now, here's the thing. I know that you think that shame has everything to do and is created by what happened in your past that you believe is inexcusable and you cannot forgive yourself for. But what I want to offer to you is that shame is not created by what you did or what you ate or the scene that you made or whatever you think is unforgivable. Shame is only ever created by what is going on in your mind. This is the most important thing to understand. Your past, no matter what is in your past, does not create how you feel about it today in this very moment, right? If you feel ashamed or guilty or regretful about something that happened in your past, it's because you're having a thought right now that's producing the emotions of shame or guilt or regret. Now, I know that that is a big shift in how a lot of us think, but it's so true. No matter what happened, your past is not that powerful. Okay. Whatever you did, it is not that powerful to make you feel a certain way today. How you are feeling right now about something you did in your past and something you're telling yourself, I can't forgive myself for, has everything to do with how you're thinking about that thing that happened. And this alone, this concept alone, that your past does not cause how you feel, but your thoughts about your past cause how you feel, is mind blowing for people. Because if you want to change how you feel about your past, you don't have to step into a time machine. You don't have to cover up how you are feeling. You don't have to keep generating negative feelings to hope that you will learn your lesson. If you want to change how you feel about your past, what you have to do is first change how you are thinking about your past. So that's what I want to run through with you today. Some questions that you can start asking yourself to figure out, how can I start thinking about my past differently? This is going to be really challenging work. Okay. And so I would encourage you to not just try to do this in your head, but you might want to later, get a notebook, write these questions and your answers down so that you can really dig into it. Because for many people, what they will say is, it's impossible to change how I think about my past. And it's not. I promise it's not. I've done it myself. Okay. And I help people do this all the time. And you can do it too. But it will be challenging work, especially if you believe what you've done is unforgivable and inexcusable and never should have happened, and that you cannot live it down. So, okay. So there are 5 questions that we're going to go through. And the first one I want you to ask yourself is, what is the main thought that you have about the worst thing that you've ever done while overeating or wanting to overeat? Now, pay attention to this, because I'm not asking you about the worst thing you've ever done while overeating. I'm asking you, what is the main thought that you have about it? So it might be something like, I wish this hadn't happened. This is unforgivable. I'm a bad person. I'm a screw up. I'm never going to be able to live this down. I hurt myself and other people. Whatever it is, write it down. What is the main thought that you have about the worst thing that you've ever done while you were overeating? The next question I want you to answer is this: what feeling does that thought create for you? Now, again, this is a shift in how a lot of us are used to thinking about it. We think that our past and what we did creates how we feel. But I want you to take a look at the thought that you wrote down and ask yourself, when I think that thought, I wish it hadn't happened. This is unforgivable. I'm a bad person, whatever it is. When you think that thought, what feeling is created for you? It could be it could be any range of feelings, right? It could be shame or embarrassment or guilt, rejection, hopelessness, anger, whatever it is. I want you to write down that feeling. Question number 3, I want you to ask yourself, whatever the feeling is you identified, is this feeling useful? Now, do not get caught in saying, okay, yeah, but I deserve it. I deserve to feel this way. I want you to ask what I want you to ask yourself is the feeling useful? Is it helping you take action to change, or to get closer to what you want in life, or to become the person you want to be, or to achieve your goals, or to take action on your overeating? Is this feeling useful, or is it doing the opposite? What do you do when you feel ashamed or embarrassed or guilty or rejected or hopeless or angry? What do you do? What are your actions or inactions? Do you try to hide? Are you in denial? Do you make excuses? What is it? So ask yourself, is this feeling useful? Is it getting you closer to what you want and the actions that you want to take? Question number 4, if you could feel any way you wanted to about what happened, how would you feel? Now, again, this is challenging work. And when I do this work with a lot of people, they will say, well, it's impossible to feel any other way, right? It's impossible to feel anything other than shame or regret. But I want you to try to open your mind. I want you to consider that another feeling could potentially be possible, and ask yourself, how would you want to feel about what happened? Now, a lot of people will get stumped here, right? And you might be thinking, I don't know. I can't come up with another answer. I can't figure out another possible way to feel about this situation. And so if you are stuck right now, one thing that you can do is ask yourself, what if you and your best friend traded places and she had your past? Okay. She had done the thing that you did that you think is inexcusable, unforgivable, unredeemable. If the two of you traded places and she had your past, what would you think? What would you hope that she could feel about the situation? So try to step into those shoes. Try to step into the place where you are not just in the position of, this is something I did and I can't think or feel any differently about it. Try to view that happened from the perspective of someone else. Think about that best friend of yours. If she had done the thing that you think is the very worst thing you ever did while overeating, what would you tell her? What would you hope that she could feel? Would it be feelings of forgiveness or acceptance, worthiness, love? What would it be? What would you want this friend of yours to feel? So think about that, right? Think about the feeling that you would want her to have. And knowing that our feelings and our emotions are always created by what we are thinking, the last question, question 5, is really focused on, can you start to come up with some thoughts that will stop punishing you for something that happened in your past, stop generating shame or embarrassment or guilt or whatever a negative emotion is, and start to generate some different emotions, right? Maybe acceptance or forgiveness or peace or understanding, whatever it is. What can you start thinking that would generate something different? Now, I want you to go back and remember in that question 1, what you wrote down was the main thought about something you did while you were overeating that is causing you to feel the negative emotion that you have right now. So now what we're trying to do is brainstorm some different thoughts that you can try testing out. Okay. I want you to try to brainstorm at least 5 different thoughts about this thing that happened in your past and test them out. Thoughts that you think might feel slightly better and also feel believable. So you're going to have to brainstorm different thoughts, right? You're going to have to say them out loud, see how they feel, see if they're at all believable to you. Do they produce a better feeling emotion? Okay. And keep searching until you find one that you can believe. Now, I have to tell you, this is not an exercise where you go from feeling shame to contentment overnight, right? You really need to think about this as when you are starting to change how you feel about your past, right? It is a gradual process. And I will tell you that for me, I really had to try out a lot of different thoughts. The feelings of shame that I had because of the thoughts that I was thinking about things that I had done when I was overeating, they were pretty entrenched and they didn't want to release their grip or shake free with ease. No. It was a process that I had to work on, but I will tell you that there are thoughts out there that will help you to start changing how you feel about your past. And you may be surprised where you encounter them. Okay. You might encounter them in books or podcasts, or you might encounter them in movies or articles. Um, you know, be on the lookout, even like quotes on social media, but be on the lookout because I will tell you one of the very best thoughts that I ever encountered was actually from a book. I read it and I remember thinking, oh, this is a different way that I can start to think about my past. And I took it and I reframed it and reworked it so it felt a little bit more true to me, true to the situation that I was in. But for so long, I carried this thought with me and practiced thinking this thought. And the thought is, you have not always been the best version of yourself, but that makes you like everyone else. And you guys, I can't tell you how much freedom that thought gave me because I was walking around for so long feeling like there were things in my past that I could not shake, that I was always going to feel terrible about, that I was always going to have to really negative feelings about because I believed that what created how I felt was the things that I had done, right? I wasn't attuned to the fact yet that what created how I felt was actually the way I was thinking about it. And what I was saying to myself was, you're a terrible person for having done these things. And so encountering this thought and making it my own, you have not always been the best version of yourself, but that's what makes you just like everyone else. It was monumental in how it helped me to start to see that I could potentially feel differently about things that happened when I was overeating and things that happened in my past. And I'll tell you guys, it's just a process, right? I didn't just stay with that thought, right? I kept working on it. I kept advancing or trying out better feeling thoughts. And today, my past completely does not create how I feel. It does not create shame or guilt or embarrassment for me because it never did. What created shame and guilt and embarrassment was the way I thought about it. And through this coaching work, I have learned how to change my thinking and ultimately change my past. All right. So, just as a recap for today, your past cannot cause you shame. Only your thoughts about your past will cause a feeling. And when you feel shame or any negative emotion, that is not going to serve you if you want to change. In fact, it's probably going to hurt you and keep you stuck, which is why it is in your best interest to start thinking differently about your past. And you can change your past by changing what you think about it, changing what you think it means about you, changing the narrative. And I will tell you guys that moving to this place and finding a new perspective, a new way to think about it, is something that is going to be some of the most profound work that you can do. Because so many of the people that I work with, they really want to change their overeating. They really want to get a hold of this habit, and they are carrying their past as like heavy baggage. It's just like something that they are dragging behind them, and it's holding them down. And they tell themselves, "No, this is a good thing. I need to remember that this was terrible so that I will never do it again." But it just holds them back. So that's why I want you to go through these questions today and really consider if you can start looking differently at your past as well. Okay, so that's it, my friends. And I will see you all next week.